Good morning. Thanks for coming. Go ahead and call this meeting to order and ask for approval of the agenda.
I'd like to amend the agenda and add an item under events for street closures and the discussion about the street closures for events.
Thank you, Tyler. Anyone else?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Bruce.
I'll second.
Anna, second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Public comments on agenda items or any public comment. Doesn't have to be on agenda items. Gordy?
Okay,
Good to see you.
that's going to be at the end.
Oh, you can. We have another opportunity at the end if you'd like.
Okay, well, real quick.
Would you introduce yourself?
Okay, sure. Yeah, my name's Gordy Heinold. I've lived in Manistee for a few years, and you all funded a little project that I did with a friend along the Riverwalk, put some native plants and been working on that. Jane Siebert, who maintains the tree park down here and the yard park, came to me a while back with concerns about the lighting on her trees. She didn't like the idea of lighting in those trees from the get-go, but was disturbed by the that there was rubbing on the branches, and she was concerned that there would be damage to those branches. So, you know, I looked at them, and I'm not an expert, I didn't know, but threw it out to a few people. Matt Lamore, Black Cap Farm, looked at them. He thought they were excessively wound, and so she asked me to present that to y'all, and so I have. I find myself in this odd position having done those gardens because I just stumbled into it. And I knew about this much, and now I know about this much. But I know people who know this much, you know, and I've availed myself of them as much as possible. Brandon Prince came to me earlier in the summer about replacing the pear tree and some shrubs that were taken out by Dick's Barber Shop in that parking lot there. And he came to me about it, which seemed odd, which seemed really odd. So I'm assuming you all have a plan for that.
No.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I'd be happy to provide some input into the plan, but I don't want to execute any plan. Or, yeah. So that's that. And I don't know why he came to me with that. Those electrical boxes on the Riverwalk behind Ann's bookstore, do you know what I'm talking about? Ugly. So there are 3 and a small one. And so I got sick of it. I kept hearing, consumers won't do anything, consumers won't do anything. Maybe we'll wrap them. And at some point this summer, I got sick of it. So I called consumers about 4:45 in the afternoon. And the lady said, we'll send somebody down tonight. I told her that one of them was exposed, the panels were off, and I told her it was this little guy. So I met the service technician from Consumers who said just the 2 big green ones are theirs, which are the least offensive looking. There's another little guy that the panels come off loose. I just took them off because it looks better completely exposed. That's Cable Company. And there's the severely rusted one. He said that is either, this is his words, either the cities or the property owners there. So if that's the case, then could we get something done with that? Paint it, because it's horrendous looking. Okay. And then I just wanted to give you an update on what I'm doing. Again, I know a little bit, and I've been longing for a coalition of people. There are people interested in this in town, and everybody's busy. So last fall, I thought, okay, fall, winter, I'm going to see if there can be a coalition of people who can work on this together, and everybody was busy. However, in the spring, there was some new life into it. And so we ended up doing a couple of projects with DPW down on the First Street in the median. And we'll see how that goes. The deer got into one of them, but the other one is good. But I don't have the heart to do anymore right now. I made a commitment when I started to maintain it because I can't bear the thought of something being done and not maintained. So I've gotten it, with the help of some friends, have gotten it, some things to a certain point, but there's so much more that could be done. I look at it and my heart just goes, oh, this could be so nice, and it could be so expanded. And it doesn't seem like such a big deal for me, but as an individual, it feels inappropriate for me to be making more decisions that affect the whole public. You know, my design aesthetic is like wildly out of the mainstream. So I don't want to impose that any more than I already have. And I've tried not to by getting input. But I just wanted to let you know that I appreciated that you folks funded that one project, and I learned a lot, and I would love to see this expanded because I think the use of native plants is just hugely significant from an environmental perspective. If we want insects, we got to have them. And if we want birds, we got to have insects. So that's the foundation. And there's some really low-hanging fruit for expanding it here in town. So I'm going to wait for a coalition of groups, individuals, whatever. I was contacted by the Seeds EcoCorp people earlier this summer. They said, hey, how can we help? And I was kind of excited then, but I realized it's not quite time, at least for what I can see. But those resources are out there, and I would love if we could, really take full advantage of them.
Corey, thank you. Appreciate everything you do, and we'll discuss the things that you brought up today.
Okay,
Thank you.
you bet.
Anyone else? Okay, moving on to approval of minutes from our regular meeting from July 10th.
Make the motion.
Motion from Tyler.
Second.
Second from Bruce. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Item 5, approval of minutes from our special meeting on August 7th.
Make a motion.
Motion from Tyler.
Go ahead.
Second from Lindsay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks again. Annual compiled financial report, Richards and McDougall.
Yep. So Krista, thanks for coming and being able to kind of give us a high-level overview of the annual finances. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for inviting me down here. As everyone knows, we do your financial statements on a monthly basis. I am one of the partners down at Richards and McDougall. We appreciate being able to do that for you guys. Just to kind of give you a quick overview of them, I'm not going to go line by line on them, but June's just came out only because it's year end. These ones get audited, so we wait a little bit longer just to make sure we have all the accounts payable, accounts receivable on there. So when they're audited, they're correct. So July will be coming out later this afternoon once everyone. I just want to make sure there was going to be no changes on these. We worked with Carmen quite a bit, just make sure we have everything in there. So overall, the checking, when we look at the assets in your cash accounts, overall, when we look at from last year, you're actually up $80,000 in the checking accounts from last year. It does go a little bit skewed on that just because your accounts payable is also up $16,000 from last year, which is mainly a bill from the same ASD for those services agreement that was 17,000 of it. So besides that, everything was pretty common, pretty comparable from year to year. Our total equity is up $59,000 from the prior year. Looking at the statement of activities with the income is actually, when I look at the prior year, the income was down a little bit. It was, the income overall was down about $30,000 from the prior year. a lot of that was just the hops and props we didn't have in this year that we had in prior year. That was $43,000. But you also got grant income in this year that you didn't have in prior year of $75,000. Your engineering fees were $117,000 for the program that you were running. So, I mean, that was the difference. And the grant project was reduced. You had in the prior year for Conos and Conos and another one, they, right there. Then Snyder's that you guys had expenses for, and this year we just had Bluefish. So the income, changed a little bit, but your expenses kind of offset that. So overall, it was just a $30,000 difference from prior year. Everything's looking really good with all the projects that are being done. There's no concern on a financial part that we're seeing with your financial statements at all. So,
Great. Is that it?
are there any questions on that or? Perfect. Kind of
Thank
a
you.
Quick overview.
No, that's great.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
coming.
guys for letting us work with that, and I'm gonna sneak out of here for another meeting. So.
Okay, sounds good. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, approval of expenses. Should have those in your board packet. Motion from Karen. Second from Tyler. Discussion, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. New executive report, Andrew.
Yep, so a busy month, good month. So just some kind of high level economic development items, the music hall, there's been a lot of interest in that property. So that's 348 River Street. There's been 3 interested buyers over the last month. Nobody's, to my understanding, put in an offer. But it's good to see, people are looking at it, seriously considering it, want to see movement on that property. So that's really encouraging. And I think if you could just find the right buyer who has a vision for that space, that would be excellent. As you guys know, with the special meeting, we passed the resolution for the brownfield on the Northern Hotel. So that was great. Went to the city council meeting after the fact and kind of vocalized that we had passed that resolution earlier that morning. And then the city council had approved that brownfield plan. So that's also getting underway, and there should be movement on that hopefully next spring is what the property owner made it sound like. So that would also be excellent. A lot of assistance for downtown businesses. We have a business relocation taking place in November who's from just outside of town and are going to move down to River Street. That's still fairly confidential, but as to what business that is exactly. But there's been a lot of assistance with property owners and trying to help them find tenants for vacant spaces. So that's really it from an ED side. But I know all of you understand that I'm the point person for the DDA, but I was told that I kind of have to reiterate that fact that from here on out, I'm kind of the point person. So if you have any questions or concerns that are DDA related, bring them to me or the director email. And then we'll be able to field those questions, figure it out from there. But just want to reiterate that from here on out, I'll be the point of contact. I know there was some transition with Mark leaving and then Carmen helping out. So I just kind of want to make that fairly clear.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's all for me.
Great. Thanks, Andrew. Any
Yep.
questions for Andrew? Okay, moving on to reports from subcommittees. We're not calling that back anymore. Our bylaws say subcommittees. It's okay. Facade grant.
Okay, so we have in the board packet the proposed guidelines and application for this year's facade program. If it gets approved today, we will need a motion for approval, but it'll be kicked out to all the interested parties and then also just media release to, tell the public or downtown businesses, hey, facade grant's launched, and I'm planning to get out and make sure everybody's aware of the fact that it's launching. There's very minimal changes to the guidelines. We had an ad hoc committee for the facade grant, or subcommittee for the facade grant, and there was just some small changes that were made.
Okay. We do need a motion to approve these changes or the program in general,
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
For for the next.
Yep, so then it can officially launch.
Okay, for the next cycle of funding.
Motion to approve the facade grant program with the amendments from the subcommittee.
Okay, Bruce is making a motion.
Second.
Second from Sammy. Discussion, questions? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Streetscape. Bill's not here. Andrew?
Yep, so right now we have Brandon Jensen here to do a little presentation and proposal on consulting work that is going to be done to help kind of figure out the scope and exact design elements of the streetscape. So
Yeah, and just back story on that. So the Streetscape Committee has been working through the Price and Vandenbrink study. We've been working with Spicer Group, and we've had a lot of discussions. We're trying to figure out how to pull this all together and figure out what we want. We got a lot of menu items from Fleiss and Vandenbrink, but not really a complete plan. And not that we did get a complete plan, but we need to figure out what we can afford and how we can maybe phase this. So we started talking with Brandon, and I'm going to turn it over to Brandon, but feel like maybe there could be a good synergy here for his services. So go ahead, Brandon.
Just, would it be okay if I add something real fast?
Thank you, yeah.
So I came on board after the streetscape planning was really going forward. And just as the normal guy, small brain, I'm looking at it going, is this really Manistee? And is this even possible? How much money do we have? And I didn't quite understand it really. So I just want to throw that out.
No, I appreciate that.
So no, with that, Kyle kind of came to me after the project was done, and I know most of all of you around the table, but if you don't, Brandon Jensen, owner creative director of the Right Side Design Group, Manistee, been here 14 years. Served on the DDA many years ago. Design committee chair. Was around when Tyler was on the DDA.
And you grew up here.
I grew up here, 5th generation here, so been in Manistee for a really long time. My agency, we call ourselves an advertising and marketing agency because it's difficult to try to get people to understand exactly what it is that we do, but we really do a lot of branding, community facilitation. We work a lot with K-12 education, secondary ed, travel and tourism, and a lot of the work that we do is oftentimes around a communication strategy pertaining to an actual strategic plan. So a lot of entities will go in, they will have strategic plan development done, they will do that work, and then they need an implementation or work plan to follow that. We get into a lot of that with clients that we work with. So Kyle came to me and said, hey, we've got this study that was done by F&B. There's a lot of high quality information on traffic study, a lot of necessities that was just required to either be updated or that needed to be looked at and addressed through the downtown corridor. But then to Kyle's point, it kind of came to, okay, what are those next steps? So that's really what we're essentially tasked with looking at for you guys, is what would those next steps be in a communication toolkit that could be presented to other subcommittees of the city, commissions, the DDA in general, other stakeholders, trying to really sort of collect and gather as Kyle put that, sort of menu of items from the F&B study, garner additional feedback, provide some different rendered aspects that is required, working with an A&E firm that the DDA would select. And I don't, know the formal process of what that specifically looks like, but I know there's been discussion, to try to leverage the Spicer and what has their relationship with the city of Manistee to try to, again, look at a scaled, sustainable solution of what something could look like downtown. In reviewing the F&B study, it looks like that there's a lot of focus on some of those key elements throughout the River Street corridor, Riverwalk connectivity, the West Plaza down by the marina. But there's still the big question that has been kind of raised by the Streetscape subcommittee to me, and that is what exactly does the actual streetscape itself potentially look like? So trying to provide some you know, gathering of information from the FNB study and then prior studies that has been conducted by the DDA over the years, and putting that in an actual communication style so there can be a set of objectives that the DDA could look at to say, okay, this is kind of the next step. So it would be us working in concert with other A&E professionals, but we would be really taking the lead to assist the DDA in packaging that communication and public relations strategy so they understand what exactly it is that final product or what the next steps are. So it's challenging in these sorts of programs when you have those studies done. It's either you go right from that to an A&E firm and you go right into the kind of plan configuration. Okay, we're going to go right to drawings and then to bidding. But there's this gap in between, and that's what's been kind of described to me, is that there's not yet a general consensus of some of the elements that are desired downtown, because that wasn't quite flushed out enough in the FNB study. So that's something to gather some additional feedback through the groups, and we can help facilitate that process and then leverage the local engineer of record to assist in any cost requirements that the DDA may have when and if they want to go in that direction. So it's really communications toolkit is what we would be providing. And that can be as extensive or as lean as the Streetscape Committee and or DDA desires. So the quote that you see in front of you really is more of a not to exceed value. That's kind of throwing in the what I would call worst case scenario of, okay, we're going to take a considerable amount of time back and forth. There's really two phases. One is the communication toolkit to get the ideas and those elements hammered out, which is a combination of the FNB study and the prior studies with consensus of the DDA. So that would be more of an internal work product done amongst the DDA and the subcommittee. And then from there would be the identification of who and what outside stakeholders do we need to then engage to garner support for the project, whether that's Parks Commission, RBC, and there's a variety of different city commissions. It could be all the way up to the county level, but that is all to be determined based on the work in phase one. And then phase 2 and 3 is much more traditional and conventional, what you would expect in a large municipal streetscape project. You'd have essentially the design process from the A&E firm, bidding, construction. That's usually where we step back and are really only at that point in a support role, because that is not what we do. We really handle the communications strategy on the front end. So we've done work with schools and bond proposals, and we've done work with other economic development entities, offices on fundraising campaigns. This is all in that same kind of vein to try to really gather consensus and thoughts. So we're not going to go through and resurvey. There's already a lot of work done from the FNB study. So a lot of that body of work is already there. It just needs to be compiled in the directives that the DDA is basically. We're just trying to consolidate that information and put it in a plan and a package based on the Streetscape Committee and DDA's desired direction. The FNB study does a really good job of compiling all that information from high level. We just need to get to that next ring under to create more of that action plan and what those next steps are. So then the DDA can feel comfortable and appropriate to engage with additional A&E firms or urban planners or whatever direction that takes. So outlined in here is the general overview. Like I said, the big work product is that communication toolkit. Again, as it was described to me at Streetscape Subcommittee, is that we're really looking for sort of toolkit presentation deck that can be taken around, one-pagers, talking points, something that can get the entire group kind of moving in that same direction as to what that overall vision is based on the work that's been done.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions for Brandon?
So, excuse me if I can't remember this stuff, but we had done a scoring of everything. Did we, I don't recall that being brought back and tallied up. Did we do that?
We did. I thought it was brought back.
Okay, like I said, I might not remember.
I don't think we presented it.
Okay.
I think there were
The subcommittee, I think, looked at it.
conversations around it, but yeah, your scoring looked like everybody else's. And you're talking about the elements that we had to
We were going to
first.
prioritize.
There was near consensus on the top of the list. And that's what led us, to ask for the next step, because those elements had to be, put into, a document that we could say, this is what it's going to look like.
And that, I understand that piece, but I'm still like, okay, when we started this, some time ago, it was like, okay, we have significant repairs that need to be done down on River Street. And then it kind of evolved, but it's like, I'm not even sure what the priorities ended up, as a group, I'm not really sure what those top maybe 5 or 6 ended up being from the group. And I think we have some new members since then, but, so I'd like to see those. And I agree, we all need that elevator speech that needs to kind of be able to kind of tell people what we really want to do with those priorities, if those are what everybody wants.
In a lot of the discussions, Karen, with the subcommittee and with Brandon have really focused on a scaled approach, rather than a complete replacement, which probably isn't realistic initially, but a scaled approach, if that's how it has to happen. It could be intersection by intersection, it could be, there's a lot of ways to do it, but certainly those things would play into it.
Well, just so it's like, so this group can see that stuff. I knew when we started, it was like only like 1.2 million is what we have. And that's like, okay, one corner.
Well, and that's only what we could potentially bond for.
Right.
So I feel like with this tool, we would be able to leverage other resources.
And have a plan. I
Absolutely.
like that idea about, because yes, we have to move down the street. We can't do everything.
Right.
But I like that plan. And I like this idea.
And I think one of the biggest pieces to it as well is, given the nature of what my office does, we're indirectly interwoven to a lot of other projects throughout the community. So there's other things that are really sensitive to the impact of the streetscape. There's the South River Walk enhancements, there's the North River Walk enhancements, there's the recent plan that was presented on the West Plaza at the Marina. There's what's happening on the east end, which is something that we don't want to just, a lot of people, local included, a lot of people believe that River Street starts at 31 or Division moving west. Well, there's an entire other part of our downtown core that is on the other side of the highway, which there's impact to that corridor that's going to occur with MDOT and what's happening on the US 31 corridor. So there's a lot of different sensitivities there's a lot of balls that are juggling up in the air. It's our job usually to come in and just say, okay, let's make sure all of those are sort of documented, identified, and then say, what are those things that we just need to keep referring back to make sure that there is a sustainably scaled approach to say, okay, let's not forget that here. Let's make sure we reach out to that group to find out a status update before we proceed with this, because this could have direct impact to that. And we want to make sure that there is a continuity, especially when we're talking about, a project of this size and scale. The F&B study, there were tens of millions of dollars in overall potential work inside of there, which, for a community this size, it's a pretty aggressive dollar figure to try to land on. So yeah, I think the biggest piece that we're trying to help facilitate is some of that scaled sustainable solution piece, which we would definitely want to leverage with, a DDA selected engineer firm from a costing standpoint to pluck out some of these key elements. And then, there are some weird intersections down here. There's an intersection, honestly, by this building and the Elks, and that fall off, and there's a lot happening underground there. Then you look at, some of the intersections further to the east of here. You've got bends in the roads, you've got non-perpendicular crosswalks. There's a lot of stuff happening that's going to require some additional looks at engineering, that if we can identify what those are, to say, okay, what is a good sustainable solution for that specific intersection? And getting into that process is when that will start to reveal itself, whether we handle this on an intersection by intersection basis, whether we handle it as, this segment of the street versus this segment of the street. And having some of those discussions with the committee is just really, our job is to really look at it from a high level overview, to keep our hands on a little bit of all those elements, and then reach out to those key professionals when required to get analysis and doing it in the most cost effective way possible to the DDA.
I've been on this committee for some time, and some of us have been through it before, and but it's always like it's great stuff. You get some momentum, and then it kind of just drifts, and a new group comes comes in and it drifts over here. And I love this idea that it's like the high level, 5,000 foot view of here, everything. And like, we know the project and on this, highways, like 25, 26 is coming in, so all of that stuff, having it in a plan to lay forward, I'd like to really have it solidified so that like, if I'm gone and by the time this happens, I know that the next steps are still going. So I think this is what's been needed for some time to be able to put it forward.
So the streetscape subcommittee is recommending that the DDA support phase one of this, and the rest of the committees here except for Bill. Anything to add?
I have a lot of respect, in particular for people who have skill sets that I completely lack. Communication strategy and figuring out what people need to hear, what's important about a project, and clearly communicating what the project is about, I think is what a lot of DDA and city initiatives lack. Brandon has those skills, and I got more excited about the project listening to him talk about it. And I think everybody, the reaction of the city council when they saw a picture of, what that Marina Park was going to be was very positive. I was surprised at how positive it was, but it was, the effect of, having a clear vision of what something should look like is really important. And Brandon, can get that, draw that from the materials out for us. So that's my elevator speech to the DDA. And I also think we need to tie up the last piece of the subcommittee, which is sort of presenting the spreadsheet, with the stuff that needs to get done first.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Okay.
Because I don't think we brought that back to the full DDA.
And I can look back, because that was kind of pre my arrival, so I can look back and then see if, kind of compile it if it's not already compiled, more or less.
Yeah, but Brightside has a good way of being able to help with the conversation. And as I had looked at the initial report from Pleiss and Vanderbrink, I wasn't sure where we were going with this. So to be able to have a facilitator come in, and that's how I'm looking at Right Side, is this facilitator to help us look at what is scalable for Manistee, because we can have structures and we can have all these things that lead people to the Riverwalk and new streets, but I don't think we have $1 billion to be able to do that. And I don't think we want that. So to work with Right Side Design and Brandon's team on what could this actually be? And more importantly, how are we selling this? Because we haven't told people really what's in the study and what's next. And that's the phase of getting people excited and getting support for the next phase of what River Street could look like.
Excellent. Deanna, did you have something?
I did. A few months ago, Tyler brought to the group in kind of an innovative way of some financing, something that some other downtown are doing. Has the subcommittee looked at that anymore?
Yeah, it's on the agenda next.
The gap financing. Yeah.
Okay,
That's a gap.
I'm probably just jumping then.
That's okay. Okay, anything else on this? Is there any action?
Motion that we accept is it a contract and the quote proposal from Right Side Design?
The whole thing, a particular phase?
If I may, I would just recommend phase one. I mean,
Okay.
I think that's the most, there's going to be a lot of learning in that point to dictate what phase two is. Phase two and everything beyond is kind of a shot in the dark right now because that discovery side hasn't been done. So I would not recommend going anything beyond phase one just because we don't know where some of that stuff is going to land yet.
So I recommend that we approve phase 1 communication toolkit creation by Right Side Design.
And that's a motion.
Yes, it is.
Second.
Thank you, Karen. Second from Bruce. Any discussion?
Feels good.
I think it's exciting.
Feels good.
Good. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you, Brent.
Yeah, appreciate you. Thank you all. Look forward to it.
Events.
So we brought a list of items for the event trailer, the proposed event trailer, and those have been purchased with, so we have the heater, the picnic tables, signs, PA system, all purchased and are piling up in our backlog because there's nowhere else to put them currently. But going forward this month, after getting more input from the events committee, we are going to get high top table as well as the cornhole boards. So that's progressing nicely. And there is a kind of budget layout. So we have just under $2,000 left in that initial, I think it was it $7,000 or $8,000 allocation that the board made last month. So there's another just under two. So if more items are proposed, and we'll probably start looking at actual trailers to house all this, hopefully over the next month or two.
One thing that I just thought about the other day for the subcommittee to consider is, I think once all these things are put together in a package and they're being used, you're going to have other parties, maybe outside the DDA, that would like to use them. And so I think we just need to be ready for that. If there's a rental, if not, just something for the subcommittee to consider.
That did come up. We had talked about that, and it's DA.
We're not going to,
Yeah.
Okay.
right, just the wear and tear on the equipment.
You have discussed it.
and
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Liabilities, all
Yeah.
that stuff.
And then Nicole also made a brochure for the event trailer, kind of just potentially something that we'd be able to hand out an informational packet saying, this is what the trailer is, this is the items in it, this is how you rent, this is where you go to rent it.
Can she send that out
Yeah,
to the
yep. So
early committee members so that?
Absolutely, we can.
Yeah.
We can send that separately out.
I know we had the workup one, but we didn't.
Right, one that Carmen did.
Yeah, and then if you have any input for the design of that, we can just look at it closer at the subcommittee.
Is it?
Yes.
Does the planning include branding for the trailer?
We
So-
talked about a wrap, that would have Manistee on it. We definitely wanted to see the logo on it, but there was no defined idea because we don't know the size of the trailer or any of that stuff, but.
My only suggestion is that needs to happen at the same time.
That we
When
purchased.
when the trailer is ready,
Yeah.
it should get the wrap. Like not one day out on the streets without the DDA branding on it.
Thanks. So also Carmen was the one who did the brochure. And yeah, so it is also a board packet. And then kind of going back to the items that we bought, there are the proposed high top tables and cornhole boards in the packet, just so people can have an idea of what items are being proposed. So.
No, but just really quick, just a cute story about all this. When the UPS guy was down at delivering something at our business and said, I'm delivering this to the college building, and he said, I have 400 picnic tables, and I said, that's not for the DDA thing. I don't know what they all doing down there, but that's not for the DDA thing. And he said, no, he has 400-pound picnic tables.
Could you fit that
Like 400, like what kind of an event is?
Expanded her event.
Yeah. Manistee having, so I'm glad we did end up with 400.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I thought too, when we were talking, Bill thought that this stuff could all be stored at the DPW. I thought.
Bill's working with us to get it moved up there. It was just a matter of Carmen didn't expect there to be next day delivery. So when Uline sent 4 picnic tables and there's a semi truck on River Street kind of holding up traffic and the guy's like, hey, I gotta move. We just had to find a spot to put them real quick. So Bill's working with us though.
I think his offer had to do with you know, the trailer with the stuff in it.
Oh, yeah, that's
You know,
true.
moving in and out of DPW, not all of managing all of the stuff.
Yeah, but he is willing to have a DPW
Yeah,
truck come pick it
just
up,
store it.
place it in one of their
Just
garages.
till we got everything put together.
And with these purchases all being made, I think it's great in the timeliness of it and that we're gonna have this stuff available for the Fall Festival and then for probably through Fall Festival, a couple block parties and Frostbite will have the majority of the stuff. So the trailer's coming. Like, I really am very pleased as to how quickly this is all coming to fruition. Yeah.
Okay,
So committee, do we need to meet again? I'm not, you know, everything's kind of like coming to fruition. I don't think we need to talk again. Bill was gonna look at trailers. The only thing would be the design on the trailer, I guess we need to talk about, but
And if you're fine too with what the items that are proposed, I was just waiting to get the committee's feedback on, are we okay with this high top table and this cornwall set?
Yeah.
So once you sign off on that, then me and Carmen can, you know, tomorrow get them if you want. It's just a matter of take a look at the proposed items and, you know, just give us the thumbs up. So.
yeah, looks good to me. The high tops, will those take up too much room in the trailer though?
So they actually fold up. It's a nice thing. There is the
Right.
top, yeah, the top that is on,
it's a
called a flip top.
Excellent, that's fine. I didn't know they made them in high tops.
sounds like the subcommittee may need to meet soon again, so
Just to
you guys can
approve
plan
those.
that.
Yeah.
All right, I'll send some.
Moving on to item 3, street closures. This came up in a conversation, actually a couple of years ago, between Bill and I, and there was something that came in front of council for a River Street closure, and I asked Bill about it, and he said, you know what? These things should come in front of the DDA first. But action was never taken. It just sort of went away. And so it came up again. And so Bill was recommending that the DDA make a recommendation to council that any event or activity that involves a street closure in the central business district would come in front of the DDA first. Then the current procedure is that an event application goes to the police chief, and then the police chief kicks it to city council. City council, Bill says that city council wants DDA's input and involvement and direction because these things just go on their consent agenda. So if it's a green light for the application, it's on the consent agenda, but they want input on it prior to that. So that's what this is for, and it came up after the board packet was released, and so thank you for Tyler.
In our brochure for events, we have public street, which is the closure stuff, the event, the public street, a separate street closure request through the city police department is required. City council must also approve, so we may have to put another step in there about, before they go to city council, actually, after they get it from the police department, maybe come to a DDA meeting.
And just get support.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily they don't have to come to a DDA meeting. They can certainly to present it, but the application should go through, is being recommended to go through the DDA first.
Oh, so it'd just be like on the agenda, like so-and-so's looking to close down the street, maybe like details on the event.
We're trying to move them quickly, so would it, just like, even if it's just presented to the DDA director or whatever, I mean, that's.
I would rather.
Personally, I wouldn't want to put that on the DDA, the administrative staff to make that decision because there's some businesses that are going to be upset about whatever decision you make.
I mean, for example, there's a street closure this Friday that a lot of people didn't even know about. It should be, in my opinion, it should be difficult to close a street in the central business district. There should be justification for it. And council agrees, but currently that's not part of the process.
So, yeah, I suppose it'd be okay, because we, you know, our meetings are in the first of the month, and if you're planning something, you plan it, you know how.
That
And then it goes
that
right to,
application is required 90 days prior to the event anyway. Even though they don't adhere to that completely, you
Oh,
know,
okay.
but the application states that it's required to go in front of council 90 days prior to the event.
I would include the meeting, like, schedules in the, whatever we're handing people, like DDA meetings first of the month,
In the
send in the
application.
application before that, and then the next city council meetings are the second or every other Tuesday or whatever.
You know, from the perspective of the applicant, this doesn't change very much. Because the way that you described the process was DDA, you know, the way that Bill suggested it was DDA on approval moves it to Josh. On approval moves it to council. That's,
so we have that,
Yeah.
we have that differently though.
But
We
it-
have it to Josh first, then the DDA, then the city council. But the application, all that process has to go to the sheriff, the city first, the city police first.
An applicant might also not know that, like, we meet on the whatever, second Wednesday of the month, and, oh, I could wait till Thursday. Why does it matter if I wait till Thursday to submit this application? Oh, well, you just missed our meeting, so we have another 30 days to wait. That's my point about including the deadline.
oh, yeah.
Yep, that's easy.
So we can add the DDA in this language after the city police department, then that goes to city council, and we can put underneath that, the meeting date, meeting time of the DDA. So it's kind of like an asterisk.
And I know right now too, the city, we had like a meeting on Monday regarding events on their website and, how are they articulating information out to the public? Because there's been more and more interest in doing events downtown. And it seems like the process isn't necessarily clear. So it seems like right now there's been a lot of focus on events and trying to figure out the process and redoing the application. So we can make sure that, we have a line item in that application stating these are the DDA meeting, when they meet, making sure everything's updated.
And I think from there, it would be a recommendation to the police chief and council that we approve or disapprove of this activity.
I mean, we can ask it to be flipped around. It is like I think we talked about that, coming to our meetings first to tell us about the events. And in that discussion, they can say we need a street closure. We talked about that, but we didn't put it in. And then they can go online and get all the paperwork started that goes to the city council. By that time, we've already said.
And I don't think as a DDA group, we approve or disapprove, maybe that verbiage just, and like we can show support of, but if we disapprove it, like it's not dead in the water, right? Or it is.
That's what they're looking for sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if the Downtown Development Authority doesn't want something to take place, then it would be strange for the police chief to say, no, this is.
No, that's true. No,
Maybe
I get that. I just, that's a lot of,
Something that still goes to city council, but it's a recommendation from planning commission.
Yeah,
to approve.
council's asking for the input.
Yeah, if we say no, that'll weigh fairly heavy on their decision making.
yeah, but if
Couldn't it be a recommendation to city council?
That's typically how we do most everything else, is a recommendation to council.
Recommend denial and recommend approval.
I just see that as
They
being a
could tell
lot
us
of,
to go fly kite if they wanted to.
really, we meet once a month, and if we're saying no, and then what's the person's, if we say no, because it's maybe sloppily put together, it's not put together right, it doesn't set right with us, then what's their recourse for, if it's only, like 90 days is their event, for them cleaning it up, brushing it up and saying, okay, we've done our homework, we've done this, now can you say yes? Like, if we say no, does it stop there? Or maybe we have recommendations of what they could do, so we say yes.
Well, that's kind of what we were just saying, it's like using the word recommendation. It is our recommendation that you need to maybe look at this, this, and this.
This is also, keep in mind, this is specific to street closures
Right,
too.
right.
Which, again, this is my opinion, it should be very difficult to shut down a street in the central business district. And right now, it's easy.
Right.
It's
Shut
easy.
down every day.
Because there's no input. It's a very, simple application. So council's asking for input on it, and I think that a recommendation from the DDA is what they're looking for.
Especially if it's a street closure for an event no one knows about and it's poorly marketed, you're affecting every single business owner in the district for an event that no one knows about.
So is there criteria to it? Like if you're bringing 5 to 15 people downtown because of your event, we're probably not going to close down the street. But if we're bringing thousands of people downtown to enjoy our community.
And that would be the discussion at the time.
And I think that it's worth, I think that kind of reasoning, sort of communicating that to the applicant, here are the reasons, here are the really good reasons for closing down the street. Tons of people, an activity that requires a lot of space. You can enumerate those, and you can give a couple of examples of what doesn't close the street, and mention why. Restricting access to those businesses is a big deal that has economic consequences. So having an event should benefit them, not detract. So that's what we're looking for. And I think that if that's stated, and if that, is how we discuss it, everybody's going to be fine with it.
And also time of day. If you're shutting a street down at noon versus 7 p.m., those are two way different things.
Yeah.
So,
Well, not every business is going to benefit from the same events. Like retailers don't benefit nearly as much as restaurants do from.
If anything, it forces the organizer to get organized and think about everything.
Right.
So
Why are we asking for
They
this?
should be organized. This should be, we went around at midnight picking up every plastic cup out of every planter in the downtown, those types of things, because, we didn't want any issues. So those types of things need to be thought about also.
And that would be good. So there's the reason it's a good idea to close the street. And there's also, these are some of the elements that you have to have taken care of beforehand. We're going to ask about, how you're going to clean up afterwards. And we're going to ask about whether you've done advertising so that you have a reasonable expectation of having the traffic that would justify closing down the street. Saying that up front, people know where the bar is. Everybody's okay if they know where the bar is.
So what are we closing the street down for this Friday?
there's an event called
Rumble on River Street.
Rumble and
Oh, I don't remember the event.
I don't know.
That was never actually stated. Bill never stated what event.
Where are they closing it from?
Greenbush. No, from Division to Greenbush.
What is it again?
I don't remember what it's called.
We just said Rumble on River
It's a-
Street.
It's an example of why this topic is coming up, because
Yeah.
we didn't know
So
about
what are they rumbling? It's like,
No, it's a kind of a bike
it. It's about-
gathering.
not
thing
like
we've done.
boxing or anything.
We're rumbling the streets.
On Facebook, I keep seeing the thing about the wrestling thing at the Manistee County Fair, and I was just wondering if that was going to be on Manistee,
Hey,
on River Street.
hey,
That's all I was wondering. I would probably attend that.
Tyler, quiet. I think 4 to 10,
So communication to the businesses.
From
that
4
it-
to 10?
I believe so.
So communication to the
For 6
businesses that it
hours?
affects is,
That's precisely why this is on the agenda.
yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't.
I was about to rumble on River Street.
Already did. Okay, so I don't think any action is needed.
No, I mean, it's just throwing it out there so then we can kind of start fleshing out what the procedure might look like. How can we actually put this on the special events or road closure application?
I think although this is different than just the DDA special event, so this is any street closure council's requesting.
In this district.
Correct, yeah. So, do you think there should be action?
I don't think there should be action. I mean, again, I think this is gonna be a continued conversation, especially between like Bill and I, and as the city starts to get all their ducks in a row for how events are planned in the process of getting an event through to city council. This will kind of start materializing, and if there is anything explicit that needs action, then we can bring it to future meetings, but.
Just one comment. When I first did my first block party, it wasn't just on the consent agenda on the city council. It was actually on the agenda. I had to go in front of city council, say what I wanted to do. And then the second block party, it was on the consent agenda because it was identical to what we had done the first time. And I think everybody saw, you know, how it ran and everything went really well. And so then it was on the consent agenda. But my first one was not.
Okay.
So
I think that's what they're trying to move to us.
yeah, like it should, if it's a first time, it shouldn't be just on the consent agenda. It should be on the agenda.
So I can set a meeting up for us to talk, but it sounds like we have to kind of redo this brochure a little bit. Maybe explain that.
We'll change the
Yeah.
verbiage to include, you know, when a new process is officially laid out and we have some clarity on, you know, yes, the DDA is gonna make the procedure, we'll edit the brochure to align with that.
My suggestion would be sooner rather than later. I'm feeling some urgency about this. You know, the next problem is right around the corner. And I think this is a very worthwhile change to the process.
Thanks for your input, everybody, on this. Moving on to gap financing. Tyler?
I think I'll kick it over to Andrew to
Yeah, no, so-
explain where we're at.
Yeah, the subcommittee met and kind of had discussion as to what are some tangible examples of implementing this in our community. So going forward, we're going to build out several example properties and how this would be utilized. But how many people actually understand, like, would say they understand the TIF financing, like, tool? Like, is there a gap? How many people feel like they don't even necessarily understand the TIF plan? You know, is it, I'm being honest, right? I mean, it's all right if you don't, because TIF's pretty complex, but that is something that before we implement something like a tool like this, I want to make sure everybody on the board is kind of understands it in full. So if there is a lack of kind of understanding there and maybe needing more clarity, we would be able to have some type of educational session where we can get together, review the TIF plan, because the TIF plan is really supposed to be the guiding document for a DDA, right? We can't forget that. That's kind of our North Star that lays out the projects that are our focus area, right? Because we're more than just an event planning committee or anything like that. You know, we're supposed to be making tangible public infrastructure improvements and tackling these bigger projects that are stated within the TIF plan. So again, kind of just open-ended question, be honest, if you don't understand TIF as a financing mechanism, that's something that, you know, we want to look at and be able to have some educational sessions moving forward, just so we can all kind of make sure everybody's on the same page.
So how often is the TIF, how many years before you kind of read?
The plan's approved for 20 years.
Okay, all right, so we did it probably, oh, it's gonna be.
2019 was when
Okay,
it was
all right.
approved.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when it was like adopted.
So we were recommending as a subcommittee to bring, the next step would be to bring language to amend the TIF plan to the full board, correct? Or
Well, I know the subcommittee wanted to see examples first before the language was going to be proposed. That was my understanding.
can we do that between now and the next meeting and then plan for September, being able to walk through with the board members at that meeting and what it means, the overview of it, and then approve or not amending the TIF plan?
Yeah, no, I mean, at the next meeting, absolutely, but I know, again, Bill wanted to see tangible examples in front of him before we make any motion as a rigor board saying. You know,
I'd just say, as a plan of actions here, because I think forget, the presentation was in February that I presented this. So I just like to move it to the next step out of subcommittee.
And having that TIF plan and then having kind of a communication. I mean, it took, I don't know how long, you trying to
Hey, Brandon,
educate me a few
put the
times.
Communication toolkit for that as well.
It does take a little bit, but having that in front of us and then having kind of a communication. I mean, you have a definition here, which is really good too.
Yep.
But, you know, it's like, yeah, I think TIF is complicated and confusing.
Yeah.
At a certain point, the board just needs to decide whether or not we want to move forward on it.
Yep.
And I don't understand it.
Yep.
I'll be the first one to tell you, I don't understand it. I understand TIF and how this board's, but I don't understand gap financing. Sorry, I don't. So I can't be the only one. So I'm not.
And it's not just about, that everybody needs to understand. It is not just about understanding this. People will ask us. We cannot be in a position of not being able to explain exactly how it is that we are generating money for a project.
Yeah.
Write up a longer paper for you to read on there.
Okay.
You need some sleep time?
As long as people read it, I'll write something.
Yeah, but I
Draw
mean, there's
pictures.
no actionable step right now, you know, potentially at the next meeting, especially after, you know, then we will have that proposed verbiage because we have language changes that need to happen within the TIF plan. So that's the first step is getting that language because every community that's doing this has the same language in their TIF plan that kind of makes it allowable for this type of mechanism to exist. But so again, potentially at the next meeting, we'll have a proposed verbiage and an explanation and education regarding the program and being able to.
And examples,
Yeah.
example projects of people who want to do stuff
Yeah.
of how this works for them.
I'd like to see examples of it in where it's been done elsewhere.
That
And
would-
I think it's different. I mean, the county has these gap funding opportunities too, but it's like, I'm sure it's very different. You know, more specific towards this would be nice to have the other communities' examples too.
Does that provide some direction?
Yeah.
Okay, good, great.
Is that all, Tyler? Or, I mean, do you have anything else to add on that?
But I doubt we're gonna be able to get like full application materials from a project that went through another community. It would be like those pro formas and whatnot of like banking information, like bank letters and things like that. So I don't know. if they'll-
I mean, you're just looking for an example property
Yeah.
in other communities. He doesn't need the actual application. It's more so saying, hey, Fenton,
Here's a
Fenton transformed this building, old firehouse, using
Sure.
this gap financing tool. So
You're talking about Kid Rock's restaurant?
yeah.
That would be helpful.
It's been an interesting.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to old business.
Yep.
Item A, downtown window appearance.
I just wanted to give an update. Those letters were sent out via the newsletter, the quarterly newsletter. So just wanted to give you an update, you know, that letter that I wrote up and so it was in the newsletter. And then also having side conversations with businesses who could use a little more window appeal. And, you know, there's been obviously, no, we really don't want to clean up. And at some point you have to give autonomy to the property owner, but still trying to work through that.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah.
Revolving loan fund, Andrew's done a deep dive into that program.
Yeah, so I'm really happy you guys, you know, when we kind of just brought it up at the last meeting, I'm glad that there was a pause because after looking at it, I've gotten in contact with the USDA and it sounds like they have a lot more control than we initially thought over the funds and what happens with those funds. It's kind of, we have two options. It's either you continue the program or you give back the money to the USDA. So obviously we don't want to give back the money. I've been in conversation with Steve Brower with Venture North, and obviously the DDA isn't in a place where we want to continue to service loans. You know, it's a lot of hours to make sure that they're actively being serviced, and accounting and tracking that can take a lot of hours. And it's also kind of interesting as a public entity to have people's really confidential information that's technically foilable to some extent. So I think it would be better if we were able to transfer those funds to Venture North and they would be able to run the program and with the exact same applications and saying, hey, this is for downtown businesses in Manistee to get loans from. So Steve and Venture North are more than happy to do that and run that program for us, but there is going to have to be work to transition those funds, and obviously we will need board approval to do so. But kind of just wanted to throw that out there and see if there was interest in having that program run through Venture North, so then we can more heavily promote it and actually say, hey, this is a tool we have. Because right now with servicing the loans, it seems like it was a struggle in the past for the DDA, looking back at the last couple loans, saying, oh, that was a lot of work, and the DDA may have missed a couple steps over the past couple of years, making sure those loans were serviced. So it would be my recommendation to, I really would love to see the program go to Venture North, and then we can really heavily market it, because in conversation that I had with businesses, nobody knows it's a program that exists, more or less.
And just a little bit of history, Steve Brower served on the DDA board for a long, long time. His capacity was treasurer for a long time, and he managed the program then through, I think it was Northwestern Bank. I think he moved to another bank, but he's very qualified to do it. He's very familiar with it, and it was a relatively successful tool at the time, but it sort of fell off probably when he left. So.
Does he want a fee? Is there a fee for managing?
No, I mean, it would be their program pretty much. At that point, we would just be able to promote it. Again, so we would just more or less be able to say, hey, we still want to, because if you don't activate the funds, it's going back to USDA, more or less. And
It's $25,000.
Yeah, it's 27,000. So it's not going to cost us anything, to my understanding. Within conversation with Steve, it doesn't sound like there'd be any cost, because they're being able to collect interest.
Where do we sign them?
Yeah, they work really closely with the USDA, so.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I had conversation with the USDA, and they were very comfortable with that, because to transfer funds normally it takes a bit of work. They're like, oh yeah, no, like it's Venture North, we work with them, no problem. You guys can do that, but there is going to be paperwork to be had. So I just want to put that out there. Next meeting, I can bring Steve in if we want, and kind of see where that whole process is at with the transition of funds. And hopefully by next meeting, be able to have something to say, if the board wants this, we got to approve the transfer of funds.
I don't need that.
Okay.
I'd say pull the trigger on it when you're ready.
Are you making a motion?
I would make a motion to approve the transfer of the funds to Venture North to administer the loan program.
Thanks, Bruce.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Sammy.
All right, and I'll keep you updated as to that process, because it does sound like it could be a couple months with USDA just having to get the necessary paperwork, and they need oversight, and if we have losses. Oh, go for it.
Did I miss, so with Venture North administering it, would it be just restricted for?
Yeah, they would be able to pretty much limit it to like, hey, more or less downtown businesses. They might need to have a little bit more scope than just the downtown district, but it would be pretty much the exact same program that it is now. And I can double check that with Steve, but that was my understanding in my conversation with Steve, is they're able to take the application that we have and more or less the exact scope of the program.
Yeah, that'd be the only thing I'd want to make sure.
Sure, that it's not going to Benzie or something, yeah.
Everywhere that Venture North serves.
Yeah, and they did say,
It's only $27,000, so that wouldn't go very far.
Yeah, and that was Steve's point too, is he's like, it might be tough to start it just because it's only 27,000. So that was, he's like, I'm probably not gonna do much at first, because it's only that much money, but we could even potentially write, for the community foundation to bolster that if we wanted, more funds and have it be more, kind of a more versatile program.
So there's a motion and a second. Any discussion, questions further? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, thank you. DDA bylaw changes.
Yep, so this was another update. We've been having trouble getting in contact with the city attorney to actually review the changes we're requesting to make sure there's not a conflict with the ordinance. So the bylaw changes are ongoing, but I know Bill's helping us trying to say, hey, look at this, so we can get it in front of city council and have that over and done with the requested changes that were requested back in the last meeting. So that's, I'll give you an update there.
Is there any update on Riverwalk?
Riverwalk, bids came in higher than expected, and the city's gonna have to itemize the work more or less to say, let's almost phase it out more and itemize where the really expensive parts basically came in astronomically more expensive than what they thought it was gonna be. So it sounds like.
This was for the EDA grant
Yeah.
versus the new stuff that's taking place.
And my discussion with Bill over this was, he felt like because the scope of the project was so broad, that's why they came in high. So he thought, well, if we can break it up, into, this element of the project, bid out that portion and break it up, he felt like it might come in more reasonably. He says it's a ton of work, it's a pain, but he's doing it. So that's the update.
That's down there, and that's that end.
Well, it's here.
It's
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, it's here. It's, the scope of it was, I think, from the college east.
Okay, very good. I am concerned at that riverwalk on the, behind where the old House of Flavor.
No, I don't think that. I don't recall the entire scope of it.
It's pulling away, see it shifting.
Social district.
So we have created flyers for the social district, but the bigger thing is we might need to have some sort of business connection, maybe at the business connection meeting, just to review what has to happen in the social district. But I know, making sure that all the entry points in the district are properly marked, and I think Bill brought up the trash cans at the last meeting. We need trash cans at each exit point, and we'd rather have real trash cans than barrels that the DPW is dropping off, just because it's more aesthetically pleasing. But there are things with like having each entity have their own logo in addition to the sticker. That's something that's required, but I know a lot of the entities right now aren't doing it, and we want to make sure that we're in compliance. So wanted to bring that to your attention, and we're trying to figure out exactly where we're lacking, in compliance, and make sure that we are taking care of it, and all the entities that are participating in social district are able to do it properly, so that we don't get in trouble from any state entity if people came poking around and saying, hey, you don't have a trash can at an exit. Right? I mean, that's low hanging fruit, and even just having the signage. When somebody brought up, sidewalk stickers saying, this is the beginning of the social district. So looking into that as well.
We did have those.
Yep.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah, so somebody was requesting for them to be kind of brought back to have a better indication
And I think we decided not to do sidewalk stickers, but it would be more signage on posts or something.
Yeah.
But I see this as two things. There's the DDA has taken on the social district as a project and implementation. So there's a DDA and city aspect, but then there's the restaurant and bar participants. That they have a clear 1 or 2 sheet. These are the requirements, and if they're out of compliance, we've done our part to educate them. Then it's, but that's not our responsibility. I see is educating them. Here's what you need to be in compliance with the program, and our part is also making sure that the streets and the signage and trash cans or whatever that is.
When we started this, it's over a year or so ago, we bought those trash cans, with the special lids and stuff like that, not the barrels, but the DDA. We bought a bunch of those, so I'm not sure if we miscalculate how many we need, or.
I'm not sure which
maybe it was just maybe
okay.
it's
We used to have the barrels, kind of everywhere, and so they came and we talked about the new ones that have the grate around the top of it. They're nicer looking.
Okay, yeah. I don't remember
We
seeing
bought
those.
those.
Okay.
Unless we augmented their supply. Sure. I'm not sure which way to say that.
I can follow up with the city and see if we, is DPW just having, do we have more trash cans, or did we just miscount and didn't realize how many entry points into the social district?
I would imagine we didn't really take it in,
Okay.
I don't think we really thought it out how many we really need. And that's an issue all over our recreational areas in Manistee.
I think the biggest issue is signage and maps for the
You
program.
could even put signs on those cans possibly.
Okay, thanks for that update.
Yeah. Shine update. So there's been discussion about the Shine program, the tree wrapping and lighting downtown. So I constructed a little budget here for what it's gonna cost, if we are gonna carry that on, what is an annual service typically gonna cost? So Shine came out at the end of June, and it was an invoice of $700 for replacing several strands of lights and doing general maintenance for it. So looking forward, we probably will have to have at least an annual maintenance that's gonna be closer to, we can assume it's $1,000. So I just constructed these numbers and wanted to put them in front of you and kind of see, do we have an appetite to continue this program and see that it's continued and see it through for another year and making sure that it's done right, because there's been complications with the electrical work and making sure that those stay consistent and the durability of the strands themselves, because people are climbing on the trees and tearing them down. So just, we have $40,000 in our budget for downtown decoration. That's where this is coming from. So if we would kind of want to year over year, just earmark, $5,000 or so just for that lighting program, that'd probably be an appropriate amount given how much it costs for a visit from this gentleman who runs it for us.
Now, I know, Andrew, you weren't here back then, but Kelly had this, Kelly Greavy that kind of brought this to the group at the time, had this all laid out. We had a maintenance program with them,
Oh, did we? Okay.
right? If I'm not mistaken.
There was an initial warranty period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was only 9 months.
But we're
Okay, but
past
there was
that.
an annual
Right.
$1,000-ish in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
That we already.
We're into the maintenance part of the agreement.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
This is my opinion. I'd like to see the program continue at least for a year. I don't think the amount of money we spent to throw in the towel from a few problems. We've learned a lot. The problems weren't all the lights. There were some electrical issues that the city spent a considerable amount of money with their electrician of record to fix some of these issues, and it's ongoing. So I've mostly heard compliments on the program. So personally, I'd like to see it continue and potentially expanded or adjusted. That's my opinion. But also, this gentleman who's done a great job, he's coming from Reed City, and so that's not inexpensive. Maybe, throughout the next year, we could look for somebody local to maintain them. It's not rocket science. It's just finding somebody that's responsible. So
But
that's
I think we do need to, I agree with you, Kyle, like maintain or moving forward with it, because there are mostly positive comments about it, I've also heard. But if we're concerned about the rubbing on the trees, if it's wrapped too tight, like we should look at some of those things. We want it to be healthy for our environment and our trees.
I think that would include, at least annually rewrapping, or, obviously maybe not wrapping as tight, but addressing those things
Yeah.
individually.
Well, I think it's also a selection issue,
Mhm.
right? There are the trees that they put the lights on. Kids climb on those trees, and, given a choice between, telling them not to climb on the trees and having lights go. That park is for kids to climb on trees. So we need to be mindful of what the trees are gonna, what happens to those trees. And, mindful of doing it in a way that's not damaging the trees.
Mhm.
Yeah, and rewrapping isn't, rewrap, he charges for the removal and then reinstallation. So for like 3 trees, it was like $2,000, to rewrap that. So just to put that in perspective from a budget standpoint, and if we're fine with spending that, we have $40,000 in downtown decoration. But that's how much just for 3 trees. So yeah, I know he doesn't really want to see continual rewrapping. He kind of voiced I would love to save you guys from having to spend that money to rewrap, because he didn't know how necessary rewrapping, especially on an annual basis, would be. But
Well, I think it'd be on a case by case.
yeah, case by case for sure.
Is there board action that's needed on this?
Just board's commitment for continued spending on this. If we have more invoices come through, is this a program that we want to see continue? And
Is there consensus?
I'm with you. I don't want to pull the plug on it after a year. I don't, there's some things that we learned, but there are places that the lights have stayed on all year with no problems. And it's a real plus. That bathroom area is less scary now.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep.
New business, food truck rules and regulations.
Sure, so this doesn't require board action, just wanted to put this in front of you because we've had a lot of food truck asks and activity, and there's been some pain points, and obviously we want to protect and prioritize our brick and mortar restaurants, and make sure that they're the continued priority, and taken care of. We don't want anybody to feel threatened or what have you, or encroached by a food truck. So these are guidelines that from here on out, the city has them. We'll be able to just say, hey, these are our policies, and it's just a good layout of this is what you can do in the DDA district for a food truck, and it really limits them to just 2 or 3 spots along River Street at like pretty much either end, and you have to be 300 feet away from an operating restaurant and making sure that there's no encroachment.
Okay. Board onboarding packet.
So this, again, doesn't really require board action. I just want to put this in front of everybody. I would highly encourage everybody to read it. I would love to make binders for each board member outlining the TIF plan. And this is something that we've had new members join recently, and just, do people understand the bylaws? Do we understand the TIF plan and understand that our function as a DDA is to execute that TIF plan, the development plan? So this is something that I put together, and I'm gonna print out for everybody, hopefully have it at the next meeting, and just something that I think going forward, being able to kind of educate board members, new board members in an easier way, just by giving them this packet, it would be a good move going forward. So I just wanted to make sure you all saw this, and looked through it, hopefully read it. But
I think it's great. When I first got on the DDA board, my first stint, I received something that I could probably dig up, but it was massive, and I didn't read it.
Sure.
And I would read those.
Yeah,
So,
it was 11 pages. It has some links, and then it has some one-pagers on like Open Meetings Act and what does that look like. So again, don't want anybody to read the full legislation, but there are some good 1-pager, 2-pagers out there that summarizes legislation that we have to abide by.
thanks for that.
Yeah,
Appreciate it. I think you should put it in a binder.
Put in a binder.
I like paper.
See how much I can make for you, Kyle.
Okay, back to public comment. Thanks for being here. Board member comment. Lindsay?
No, I'm good.
Anna?
I would just like to put it out there. So since we have that $40,000 in downtown decorations and we have a fall festival coming up, I'm wondering how the board feels if I were to bring some quotes next month. I know it'll be really close to the fall festival since it's at the end of September. If the board would be interested in the DDA would be interested in purchasing some hay bales and corn stalks for the downtown to just kind of decorate it a little bit more for fall festival and make it look appealing just for our fall and for the I know we're going to do the planters, but it's been a while since we've done hay bales and corn cobs on the street posts.
Who would install those?
So I would reach out to who does our planters? Reese's,
Okay.
and see what their price and cost and all of that would be. I'd probably get a quote from Reese's and then also a quote from Farmers Market. The market.
Can you put that on the next agenda?
Yeah, and Dee, if you just get those quotes to me the week before our meeting, that'd be great.
So we'll get a quote with installing, without installing, because certainly the committee members, Anita and I, and other, she loves when I volunteer her for stuff, but we could certainly make work of getting it installed if we had the purchase.
So that'll be on the next board agenda. Meeting
Okay.
agenda.
Thank you. I'll have quotes. Okay, thank you.
Tyler, anything? Nope. Bruce?
Yeah, just something to think about going forward. I used to value a great deal that we had a conduit to a group of folks who wanted to do stuff with Kelly and the, you know, and her group.
Volunteers.
Yeah, well, a conduit to volunteers, but also they just had ideas for projects. Gordy, you know, brought us a terrific project that we were able to fund. We don't have a good conduit who's regularly on our agenda, bringing us things that they want to do. And I don't know quite how to establish that, but I think we need that.
Okay.
So,
Sammy?
The 9 and 10 weather cam is up and running. So we've been, downtown Manistee has been getting some nice coverage on not only 9 and 10 broadcasts, but they share it on social. And you can find the weather cam at 9and10news.com. And they have a whole listing of weather cams. But thank you to the Vogue for allowing us to install it up there. And it's been nice to see them kind of pan to different locations. Like right now, it's focused on the Memorial Bridge and the river, but it was on downtown earlier, and
Can you move the camera, Sammy?
I cannot move it.
but we look good on TV.
We do. It's nice because I was watching one morning and they showed downtown Manistee, and then they showed downtown Traverse City and all that construction that's going on down there. And it was just barrels and torn up asphalt and cars, and I was just like, so.
Look at us.
Look at us.
Thanks for working on that.
It's our pleasure.
Karen, do you have anything?
I just want to come back to a couple things and kick the boxes down on the river walk. Can we reach out? Yeah, the cable box possibly and DPW boxes that are rusted out and don't have a cover
Those are
on them.
consumers' energy boxes.
The two big ones are.
Yeah. The other one, he said cable. I'm quite sure those are telephone lines. But maybe the cable company owns them now. I'm not
Well,
sure.
the technician who came down there he said, I think this is.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, but can we reach out to DPW and it's like, if we have like cover not on it.
I don't think it's a DPW thing.
Could I make a
Can they-
suggestion? I think we should go, I think we should at least consider going guerrilla on this,
I agree.
right? We don't have control of the boxes or and there is regs around how much space there has to be around the box.
Yeah.
My suggestion is we go right on the outside and plant tall stuff.
Well, we
I
can,
want to hide them.
we can also do what the college did without permission, is they painted. The ones over here are painted brown, and Consumers Energy will not grant permission to do anything with them, from experience. I don't know what you.
No,
Well, yeah, yes, and specifically regarding the possibility of wrapping, he said that would inhibit the heat dissipation that they need.
I have pictures of them wrapped in other communities.
Yeah, I've seen those too.
Yeah, but in a public meeting, we're saying going rogue, maybe that's not a great idea, but.
Well, going rogue, like this is like a work to the rule thing. They require a certain amount of space around the boxes. Grant them that space and then plant tall stuff. If they want to have an eyesight, an eyesore there, I want to hide it. So, if they have a problem with it, they can make them more attractive and pay some attention to them. But, other than that, I want to do exactly what's legal and hide them.
Gordy plants some really nice tall grasses in front of my place.
Yeah, the problem there is it's shaded.
Oh, gotcha.
So, yeah.
I can think of lots of different, camouflage ideas to hide them, but they deserve not to be seen.
Yeah.
If we could just reach out to DPW to take a look at that, because it might be a safety issue or something. I mean, I know they might not own it, but maybe they could follow up on taking care of.
I feel like if we just take it back to the DDA or to the DPW, it's going to do what it has done for the last 8 years that I've been here.
It's not their jurisdiction. It's just.
I think the only solution is to hide it. I mean, wherever they're access is, plant whatever barrier or whatever you can to block the view.
Or a nice fence.
How's those beds?
Well, I think the fence is the best idea.
We can continue this discussion not on public record. How about that?
Okay. The last is, the tree is gone by the barber shop. It really kind of stands out that it's gone, even though I know it was
There were
on.
two.
Yeah,
We took two
it was
down.
like, the greenery is missed. But I would like to see something back. I don't know if we want to put trees as much, but some sort of greenery in that area would be nice. But something to look at as we're doing our streetscape stuff.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Steve?
Second.
Thanks, Lindsay. Thank you all.